Hey guys, it's Natalie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be filming a fall book releases video and I'm going to be talking about all the books that I am super excited for that release in September, October, and November. I'm going to be talking about some horror novels, some thrillers, some witchy books, and I'm just so here for the fall books. So let's get into it. A couple of the books I'm going to talk about have already been released since I uploaded this video, but I will still mention them just so that you guys have them on your radar. So let's get into it. The first one I have is Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. This book released on September 6th, and this is basically an adult fiction novel, kind of a suspense novel, and it basically follows a group of assassins who are retired, so they're older women, and they go on a vacation, and during the vacation they have other assassins try to kill them. So that's literally all that I know about it, but it just sounds so interesting to me, so definitely I'm adding this one to my want to read list. So the next book I have is The Gathering Dark, an anthology of folk horror by Tori Bovolino, Alex Brown, and Olivia Chadha. So this book is literally what the title says. It is just an anthology of folk horror, and I've never really read folk stories like that before, but I've heard a lot of good things about this book on Bookstagram and BookTube, so I was quick to add it to my TBR, and also the cover is just super intriguing. It looks very perfect for fall, so this one's definitely on my TBR. So the next book is I'm the Girl by Courtney Summers, and all I know about Courtney Summers is that she wrote Sadie, and Sadie is a book that has been so talked about all over Bookstagram and BookTube forever, and everyone loves that book. So naturally, when I saw Courtney Summers' title, I was like, yes, add it to my TBR. So this one is pitched as a new groundbreaking queer thriller from New York Times bestselling and Edgar Award-winning author Courtney Summers. And this book follows our main character who comes upon a dead body and is basically on a hunt to find the killer and get justice for the girl. So yeah, that's all I really know about this book, but because it is a Courtney Summers title and everybody loves Courtney Summers, and also the cover just looks very mysterious and I love thrillers, so added this one to my TBR. And this book will be released on September 13th. So the next book I have is Miss Peregrine's Museum of Wonders by Ransom Riggs, and if you guys haven't watched my channel before, I love Ransom Riggs. His series, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, got me back into reading after not reading for so many years, and I really credit that series to a lot, and I absolutely loved it. I also have the Tales of the Peculiar, which is basically like the fairy tales of that universe, and this book is basically a guide to all that is peculiar in the universe. So this is just basically a companion to the novels, but if you are a reader of his books, then you would definitely love this one. Basically what I'm saying is anything that Ransom Riggs publishes, I will purchase. And this book is due to come out on September 27th. So the next couple of books are also going to be September 27th releases, so as a guide I will put in the corner the release date so that you guys know. The next one is The Sacrifice by Rinch-Pekka. First of all, can we talk about this cover, because I love this style of cover. If it's got a face and some florals and it's like in this design style, I'm immediately going to be intrigued. So this is a young adult fantasy slash horror novel, and it basically follows an island oasis that is turned deadly after a legend on the island, some sort of creature, starts picking off the visitors one by one. And then because of this legend, a Hollywood film crew comes to film the experience, and they are greeted with horror. That's all I know about it, but it sounds super interesting. I've never read anything by Rinch-Pekka, but I know that her Witch in the Wall books are very popular, and I'm just so excited to read this one. So yeah, everything about this book sounds interesting to me, and I added this to my TBR as soon as I saw the cover. I didn't even know what it was about, but yeah, this one sounds super intriguing. The next book I have to talk about is Princess of Souls by Alexandra Christo. So this one is marketed as a Rapunzel-inspired YA fantasy romance about a teen witch groomed to steal souls for an immoral king and the reckless, rebellious boy to whom her fate is tied. I absolutely love retellings or anything that is inspired by fairy tales. I absolutely love it, so the fact that this is Rapunzel inspired makes me so excited for it. I haven't really heard anybody talking about this on BookTube yet. Maybe I just haven't been looking in the right place, but I have a couple books by Alexandra Christo on my TBR that I have not read yet, but this one has such a gorgeous cover and such an intriguing plot that I'm very excited to read this one. The next book I have is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. This book is marketed as a deeply atmospheric story about ancestral magic, an unsolved murder, and a second chance at true love. All I know about this book is that there's witches involved, there's murder involved, and I've heard that it is very, very atmospheric, and I love reading those kinds of books during the fall season, and once there is like witches pitched anywhere in a book, I'm just immediately gonna want to read it. So yeah, I'm super excited to read this one. And the last September 27th release I have to talk about is We Spread by Ian Reid. So all I know about this book is that it follows a lonely artist who seemingly almost goes mad, and her days are blurring together. She's losing time and things are starting to not make sense anymore. And I've heard about Ian Reid's books that they are very dread-inducing, and it really has like a slow burn terror, and it basically finds terror in the mundane. And this book just sounded really interesting to me. The cover didn't immediately catch my eye, but I was looking at new releases lists online and this one really stuck out to me, so I'm very excited to read this one. Up next, I have a lot of October 4th releases, and the first one I have is The Witch in the Well by Camilla Bruce. So this is an, I believe, adult fiction fantasy novel, and I believe it's a Norwegian thriller, and this one follows two former friends who reunite in the midst of a terrible town legend. All I know about the two characters who reunite is one of them was accused of witchcraft after several children in the town went missing, and the other character is a social media influencer, so I think this is going to be a really interesting book, and I'm just super excited to read this one. I love books that take place in a small town, as I am from a small town myself, so I'm very ready for the small town atmospheric, a little bit spooky vibes. Fun drinking game, take a shot every time I say super super followed by a word. So the next book I have is The Second Death of Edie and Violet Bond by Amanda Glaze. This is a young adult historical fantasy novel that takes place in 1885, and it follows two sisters who are mediums. But then when their mother died, their father submitted them to an asylum. So after the girls end up escaping the asylum, they actually end up joining a traveling spiritualist show group, and during this group they find out that someone has been hunting mediums and he has been getting a little bit too close for comfort. So thus ensues a hunt for the attempted murderer. This book sounded really interesting to me because not only does it have mediums, which I feel like is kind of in the same vein as witches, which I love in books. I've never read mediums in books, but it sounds super interesting to me. I love that it takes place in 1885. I love historical books, especially when spooky stuff like that is involved. So I am very excited to read this one. The book I have to talk about is Scatter of Light by Melinda Lowe. So this book is marketed as a masterful coming of queer age story, this time set against the backdrop of the first major Supreme Court decisions legalizing gay marriage. If you guys watch my channel, you know I love a good queer coming of age story, and it's set by the water in Martha's Vineyard, and I'm just so excited to read this one. And also the cover really caught my eye with all the colors and the design, and I'm very excited to read this one. The next one I have to talk about is If You Could See the Sun by Anne Liang. This one is marketed as a genre-bending young adult debut. A Chinese-American girl monetizes her strange new invisibility powers by discovering and selling her wealthy classmates' most scandalous secrets. You will hear me say this in almost every video I film, and it's that I hate reading books about rich people, but the fact that she has the ability to turn invisible and it has kind of like an academia vibe, I'm very much for this book. All the ratings I've seen of this book so far have been really good, so I am very happy to have this one on my TBR. And this one releases October 11th. So the next one I have is Sign Here by Claudia Lux. This one is an adult fiction fantasy novel, and it follows our main character who literally works in hell. And he basically has a big promotion coming up if only he can recruit one more member of the wealthy Harrison family to sell their soul. So basically this wealthy Harrison family, he signed off almost every one of their members to sell their soul, and he has one more to go for this big promotion. And I think this just sounds super funny. Just adding in corporate America to hell, I think is a great concept. I've never heard of a book with this kind of trope before, so I am very, very excited to read this one, and I'm probably going to pre-order this one. The next book I have is The Cloisters by Kathy Hayes. So this book is marketed as The Secret History meets Ninth House in this sinister atmospheric novel following a circle of researchers as they uncover a mysterious deck of tarot cards and shocking secrets in New York's famed Met cloisters. I don't know what it is about fall, but it really makes me want to read academia, dark, atmospheric novels, and this sounds like it is exactly that. I think it's also really cool that this book takes place at the Met. I think this is also another really interesting concept for a book, and I am very excited to read this one. And this one releases on November 1st. The next book I have to talk about is The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. So if you guys didn't know, Susan Dennard is actually the author of the Witchland series, which is very popular here on Bookstagram and BookTube. It is a very well-loved fantasy series, and this cover alone made me interested in this book. This one is marketed as a haunting and high-octane contemporary fantasy about the magic it takes to face your fears in a nightmare-filled forest and the mettle required to face the secrets hiding in the dark corners of your own family. This sounds like it's going to be another small town family-based book, and it sounds very atmospheric, so I'm very excited to read this one. The town is literally called Hemlock Falls, and our main character is named Winnie Wednesday. I also love reading books about family relationships, so this just sounds right up my alley. And this one releases on November 1st as well. The next one I have to talk about is The Wilder Women by Ruth M. E. Lang. So all I know about this book is that it follows a cast of characters who all have special abilities, and our main character is somewhat of a psychic herself, and basically her mother goes missing and her younger sister believes that their mother is still alive, and so they go on a journey to find her. This seems like another one that's centered around family relationships, and I really love that in books, and I also really like psychic abilities, witchy stuff, anything like that. It is my jam. And this one is set to release on November 15th. The next book I have is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fall by Ashley Herring Blake. So this one is an adult queer rom-com, and it follows our main character Astrid, who gets this huge deal to do interior design for, I guess, our world's equivalent of Joanna Gaines. And their name is Prue Everwood, and Prue Everwood's granddaughter is also working on the interior design, and she is basically bashing every single design choice that Astrid makes. So this kind of seems like it's going to be a hate to love romance, and I absolutely love those, so I'm very excited for this one. This is actually the second book in a series, and the series is called Bright Falls. I have not read the first one, but I'm not sure that I need to, but I'm very, very excited to read this one. I definitely need some more romance books in my life. And the last book I have to talk about is A Wilderness of Stars by Shea Earnshaw. So if you guys didn't know, Shea Earnshaw is probably one of my favorite authors of all time. Her writing is so atmospheric, so beautiful, and so well written. I absolutely love her books. So naturally, anything she publishes is immediately getting added to my TBR. And this one says, in this magical romance, a mysterious illness cursing the land forces a teen girl astronomer to venture across the wilderness in search of the star's message that will hopefully save them all. Most, if not all, of Shea Earnshaw's books are, like I said, very atmospheric and a little bit witchy, a little bit speculative. So if you love stuff like that, then you would probably love this book. I know that I'm probably going to love it. I might put this in my 5-star predictions video for 2023 because I just love everything she writes.